Hello and welcome back to the Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Pascal, as always, and on the other end, it is my man, Steve Hall, of course. Steve, I hope that you are enjoying the gaining life. It is kind of gaining life already when it is kind of the recovery diet. You are more assertive with the calories and all that kind of stuff. Would you call this gaining already?
Yeah, it's a tricky one because I don't think I can. I think I should probably still say I'm in the recovery diet because in reality, the chances that I'm recovered from that level of leanness and that amount of time of dieting within what has it been, 3 weeks, it's just very unlikely, even though I'd like to say it is. But I am kind of treating this like an assertive gaining phase now.
So it is kind of, you are gaining, technically speaking, because you're gaining body fat, lean tissue in the sense of like water, but also probably muscle mass. But it isn't in the sense of like intentionally gaining for the sake of building some muscle mass. It's more like in the sense of recovery, right?
Yeah, I have to be careful because so far I think I've traveled this well, but I can quickly get into, I can become my own worst enemy where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm recovered. I'll slow things right down. I'll gain at like the lower end rate of gain, or I'll see a high weigh in and I'll like pull things back. I can already feel myself getting some of those tendencies, and I'd prefer to be a bit more assertive, be more than recovered than under recovered for excess number of weeks. In 2017, literally like a month later, I was like 2 pounds up or something, which is just not great. Whereas this time round, like obviously I was full of glycogen. I had like 4,000 calories for 2 days, and off that body weight, I am like 6-7 pounds up, which I think is really good. But I still know I need to get, like today, I basically weighed in at like 173, which is 5 pounds up. Yesterday, I was 176. So I dropped 3 pounds overnight, and I don't know exactly why, but my body's still probably in like that zone where it's just like, it's just getting comfortable. Whereas when you're in your improvement season deep in, things are just very normal, and like you can get quite nice averages through the week, whereas I'm still in a bit of so I have to be careful not to like pull back calories because I'm like, that 176 was a bit high, and I can feel myself like, maybe I'll go for another walk, or maybe I won't have that 100 calories, whereas really I should be more on the side of, no, I shouldn't go for that extra walk. I should have that extra 100 calories because I am in a recovery period. Yeah. So for me and my psychology and the way I am as an athlete, I have to be careful not to be like, oh yeah, I feel good lean. Oh yeah, I feel much more energetic, and so I'm recovered. My energy is way better, and I am fucking loving the gym, but I know there are some things that, like the one thing that Jeff said, if you're still like food focused, you still like your body's telling you to continue to eat. Yeah. And I'm still definitely food focused. Like I'm thinking about most meals.
I think though it pays off now in terms of your experience. This is once again where the individualization of things come into play. You know yourself. You know that in the past you've always been that person who has been a little bit too conservative, and that you are someone who needs to be a little bit more aggressive. Whereas other people may listen to that and think like, oh shit, I'm way too conservative. I need to push things up, when in reality, they are the type of person who needs to be actually on the more conservative side of things.
I think that's so well said. And so, yeah, when I shared some update photos, I was just like, there might be some people looking at this and think I've got fat. There might be some people looking at this thinking I'm still shredded and I need to push it harder. Everyone's going to travel this a little bit differently. And it kind of upsets me when people glorify either staying really restrictive post-show and like, yeah, you should be taking that elite like mindset from prep and continue to be really diligent and hold self back and stay lean. And also other people the other way where they're like, no, you should just be free and like live life. You're in your off season now. It's like, there's like a sweet spot in the middle there. I think most people should try and travel. So I'm careful when I share how I'm traveling it. It's like, this is specific, like at any point, it's like any post. People should realize it's specific to that person.
Yeah, take me as an example. And that is something that I actually wanted you to tell you right before getting on the show. I'm feeling great at the moment. And this is not me trying to talk myself into it or so, but this is really me. Because I know what I felt like towards the end of me pushing very, very hard. My sleep was also massively impacted by that time. I was feeling quite irritated and all that kind of stuff, and the performance was dipping down. And now I'm feeling very, very much normal. Very much normal. Way more relaxed. Sleep is back to normal. And the thing is, since like my lows, I'm only up 1.3 kilograms or so. Because I wasn't really that super, super lean, and I didn't really have to dig for such a long time. I was also not in a contest prep for such a long time. So this is another example that then needs to be taken into, well, it's kind of an example and kind of contrarian example to you, whereas you have or need to undergo a quite different approach than me, for example. And I don't have to be aggressive because my body fat levels were not even barely where yours were, right? And then the more you dig, the longer you dig for, the more assertive you probably need to be in the first initial stages. And then also what needs to be taken into consideration is the type that you are normally. Are you someone who is functioning very well on the leaner side of things? So we've talked about him, and by that point, everyone should be aware of him, like Dirk. It's like Alberto said when he was on our podcast. He's someone who's walking around with very low body fat percentages and is actually looking better than some people are when they are stepping on stage in the midst of his off season. Whereas other people, they just need to push it up there.
I think Dirk, from what I've seen, Dirk's been fairly assertive pushing up, and I've been talking to him. I'm like, sorry, I keep bringing you up on the podcast as an example, but it's just because he was like very much competing, and he was part of discussion for a lot of like various chats and stuff. So, but also like for him, he did get very lean and he did diet a long time. So you could say he needs to push a bit harder. But all of it, it's like a training, nutrition, like all of this stuff. It kind of becomes auto-regulated based off like how are you feeling in real time. So like when you look at diet fatigue factors, score yourself like out of 5. How's your libido? 5 being maybe like, I don't know, normal. Like how's your libido out of 5? How's your sleep out of 5? How's your like food focus? How's your satiety? How are your energy levels? How's your training performance? Those sort of things.
Steve, what would interest me is now, even though that you've probably put way more focus into the prep itself, how should I phrase it? I had the feeling that you were so much more relaxed about everything, about the entire journey. Was it because the effort that you've put into everything was distributed in a manner when it only mattered and counted? And by that, you are not really burned out. Whereas in the past, prep was all-encompassing. You've been thinking about it 24/7. And this prep, it was more like, I'm thinking about it when I need to think about it. And do you have the feeling that first and foremost, this has been you, and that's why it has been such a smooth sailing in comparison to your previous self, and also in comparison to other people? And do you think that this is solely due to your experience, if that's the case?
Yeah, I would say up until the warm-up show, so the BMBF that I did, which was like 3 months before Worlds, if not more than that. I actually can't think what the timeline was exactly. But up until that show, really it was a super relaxed prep. It was just kind of happening. And I would say almost in that kind of like harmonious time of where the diet wasn't hitting me too hard. I wasn't having to think about things too much. But as I passed deeper and deeper, as you expect, the focus and kind of the blinkers came more and more on, especially because I was getting to higher and higher heights. So it's like every detail matters. So it's like, man, actually, I'm qualifying for finals. I want to qualify for Worlds. So I need the like elite level condition. I need to tweak every pose to be absolutely perfect. And to get there, you also get hungrier. Your energy levels are challenged. Your training is challenged. Your sleep is challenged. So everything had to become much more hyper focused. So I definitely got to a point where I was, and then you're kind of tracking potassium, sodium, water, fluids, posing multiple times a day in peak weeks. So it definitely got to that point quite quickly.
But, sorry to interrupt you there, but I would assume that during those times when you then, when you then committed the time to something like posing, it was only then you're going into it with a hyper focus on it. You're concentrating on the task, and afterwards you're able to switch off, and your mind doesn't really stay at that task the entire time. Because where I'm coming from is what I'm usually seeing, especially with first-time competitors, or maybe even second-timers or so, is that they are so hyper-fixated on the entirety of prep that they are even getting burned out before they are even making it to stage, because they don't have maybe the ability to regulate when they need to focus on what. So in the sense of like the thermostat is always full on, even though that it's already super hot in the room. And with time and experience, you realize like, all right, I focus on the task when the task is there, because there is no real benefit to thinking about it when I don't have to. You know where I'm coming from with this?
Yeah, I think it's that ultimate like specificity when I think about it as like an analogy to powerlifting. They're focusing on a variety of lifts, maybe some weak points, maybe doing some accessories, and they slowly just get to the big three, and they slowly get to like less than 3 reps, singles, and then they do their meet or whatever. And that's the same with bodybuilding. You focus more, like people who are posing all the time and focus on like potassium and sodium and am I full, am I flat at the start. It's like, no. You don't need to worry about any of that stuff. And it's kind of, as you get closer, spend more time, get more specific, worry about things a little bit more. But if you do that right at the start, yeah, you can burn yourself out. But I will say within like the last month, probably, it was something that was just like kind of burdening me quite a lot in terms of just like very much.
But I think that then you're
thinking about things a lot.
Yeah, but then I think that you're already in the groove. You eased your way into it, and it wasn't like I committed to prep and now it's just like full on mode 100% all the time. It was kind of more like you also there turned it up. It's like as if you're doing music and you have your amp setting in front of you and you're slowly turning up the volume up to the point where you can't really turn it up anymore.
Yeah, and to be fair to me, in that last period of time, there was like a show every like other weekend or every week. Like I had like the WNBF finals, then I had the Two Bros, and then literally like Worlds was like the weekend after or something, and the UK DFBA finals was like 2 weeks before that. So it was like I didn't have time to like really dial back per se. So that's why I think that last like month or so got really like hyper focused for me. But before that, like I was having, I can't remember, it hadn't even, like I was looking at how long it had been since me and Charlotte went out for a meal, and it actually hadn't been that long because I had a diet break, like, I don't know, just before or after like the BNBF show. It had been like 3 months or so since we'd gone and eaten a meal out, and it had been even less time since we'd actually eaten a meal together because I was still doing that with her. There became a time where it was like, I just need to eat at this time. I need to know what I'm eating. So I have to take full control. And there's an element that's really nice of that, but that, like you said, can burn you out. So people who do that right from the start, they're like, I'm not eating out. I'm eating my own foods. I'm tracking and weighing every little thing or what have you. And like they're on a meal plan. Like, yeah, there's some credence to that, but it can burn you out. The hard part with the recovery, this is what I was saying to Charlotte, it's been quite hard to basically see my body go from from the BNBF, that 12-week period, I basically have undone or come out of that 12-week period within 3 weeks. I'm like back to that in 3 weeks. I'm probably as lean as I was for that like BNBF qualifier maybe.
I think it's something that no one, no matter how often you go through it, something that is a fun part of the prep.
It is in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, you will feel good and the training will feel more productive as well. Probably sleep is also improving and all that kind of stuff. But often people don't really think about these things, these positive aspects, because they are so still fixated on the physique, because that's what they have been focused on over like maybe 6 months or so. And because they are just like so honed in on that one, they see this quickly fade away, and it makes them kind of, I don't know, frustrated, disappointed, maybe sometimes even a little bit depressed. And I think that I've heard it so often, even from experienced competitors, that this is something that gets to you and you can't help it. The only thing that you can do is try to stay as rational as possible and really try to switch your mindset and also the focus on other aspects.
This is why I'm really not a big fan of seeing people, and I'm not doing it, like check-in photos like every week. Like, they're checking with their coach and do check-in photos like in their recovery diet every week. I'm like, I want to see it maybe after 2 weeks, and then maybe 2 weeks, and then maybe just go to off-season like every month, like with Jess. She checked in with me since everything, and I'm like, I don't want to see your physique again, and I don't want you to look at your physique for another month, because
take the focus away
good,
from it.
Performance, exactly, like you said. So now I'm not checking my glutes in the morning. I'm less and less checking my triceps to see if the striations are there. I'm trying to take myself away from that. I will say, actually, weirdly enough, last night I was like hitting some front lat spreads and some front relax just in the mirror, and I was just like,
last night.
Yeah, last night.
When you got to the loo. Like you woke up in the middle of the night and they're like, let me just check some poses.
Just before bed, I was just like doing some posing in there, and I was just like, because they're the things I need to bring up and improve. I was just like, fuck, they're so bad. Like, so bad. my front relaxed and my front lat spread, like, they just have to improve so much for me. Because I think we recently got the world's footage, so I was reviewing that and looking at it. I was like, man, like, my front relax, like, and those two poses just let me down so much. And it can get upsetting for me when I do that. I imagine you have it sometimes with yourself, where you just get so frustrated at your body. You're like, why is it like this? Like, I try so hard. Why can't it just look aesthetic?
Have you seen the video from how pro bodybuilders train with Jared and Mike?
I don't know if I have. Was that recent?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Was it named something like genetics and drugs?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I've watched that.
A fantastic video once again. I wanted to reach out to Jared, just saying like, man, this is what the industry needs. Like, honestly, an IFBB pro talking how
it is.
Talking how it is and revealing the truth. Because I have the feeling that, of course, when you are in your small niche and your small bubble, and you are kind of blessed, then you start to think like, this is my hard work and my hard earning. And while this may be true to some extent, because of course it's also something that Jared said, there definitely needs to be some effort. Many people do a lot of shit, and many people underestimate how freaking crazy some of the compounds are, like what they can do. And this, coupled with just like being genetically blessed, you can do a lot of shitty stuff and still be massive, right? And I find it very, very, very refreshing and very important that then not only a voice, but someone who has the genetics, who is an IFBB pro, is then talking shop and is talking like openly and honest about it, like even acknowledging himself when he was on our podcast that he is one of the few genetically blessed people. That is then that honest about it, instead of like patting himself on the back or shoulder and being like, no, this is all my hard work. I'm working fucking harder than everyone else. Because that's most of the time, unfortunately, not what it is. And I find it very, very refreshing. And just to go back to what it is that you've been saying here, when you have your doubts and thoughts at times, you may be a very, very hard worker. I mean, dedicating twice daily training for years on end, I think that is quite a definition of hard training as well, especially considering that you are putting in the intensity as well. And then really buzz. Yeah.
Sorry. Just going to say, I put it this way. I think if I put in half the amount of effort and focus that I do, there's no way I'd be stepping on a world stage. It just wouldn't happen. I'd just be one of those guys that wouldn't really see much, because it's just the truth of the matter. I invest a heck of a lot into this. I try and do things as close to optimal as possible as what I think it is. And I try and milk every little bit out for my physique. And I get what I get I think in a large part down to my effort levels. And thankfully I don't have dog shit genetics, because I think even if you have the worst genetics in the world or close to that, you're not, even if you do everything right, you're just not going to get there, unfortunately. I think pretty average.
Yeah, and I think that either you can look at it from this perspective of being like self-defeating, of like, I don't have great genetics, so why should I bother? And sometimes people were even asking, probably you as well in the past, and me as well, like just not that long time ago, I had someone over on Instagram posting something underneath a picture of, why are you even wasting time on that? Yeah. And for me, it's not wasting time, because what's the alternative? And that is something that we've regularly talked about. What is the alternative? There is none. Either you want to improve and do something, or you don't, but then you can't really expect things to improve anyway at all, right? And in your case, it's like, what is it then that you have to do? Yeah, you fucking have to work harder, probably.
Yeah, and back to the Jared and Mike's video, it reminds me, because a lot of people talk about success leaves clues. And I wonder how often that can drive people the wrong way. Because you see the people who are most successful, a lot of them have worked incredibly hard to get there and very smart. But some of them have also, and a lot of them have fantastic genetics or are using huge amounts of gear. And it's like, you have to be a little bit selective with like, whose clues are you taking? Because there could be good clues and there could be some really like not very helpful clues. And I think we've all seen it, where this guy who's in amazing shape, you look at his training or you look at something he says and you're just like, okay, I'm not doing that shit. Yeah. Whereas there's other people, maybe someone like John Jewett comes to mind, who they referenced, like amazingly jacked guy, but obviously fucking thinks about this stuff a lot. Yeah. So I think you have to be careful. You can't just throw out success leaves clues. Look at all the biggest guys, they do this. It's like, be a bit selective.
That's why I hate those kind of videos and articles where it's like, 5 things successful people do.
Yeah.
All right. So you're saying that this is what led them to be successful? Probably there are some characteristics and some kind of habits that are more commonly seen amongst relatively successful people, but it's not that this was the culprit for them being successful. It's probably that these are just like similarities. It's the same like most of the billionaires like ice cream, right? The correlation and causation is once again like massively flawed. And yeah, I think it's the same here as well.
It's anecdote at the end of the day, and that's why it's the weakest form of evidence, but people will hang their hat on it, and it's like science is more powerful than anecdote, but a lot of people will poo-poo the science and they hang their hat on anecdote. It's like, okay, like a mix of the two, especially coming from people who are aware of the science. So yeah, that's why I'm glad someone like John Jewett is getting a bigger name out there.
Yeah.
And Jared is now getting the exposure he deserves. Now he's gone pro, people listen to him. Which is really cool. So maybe if I was to go pro, more people would listen over here, and hopefully that would lead them some successful clues. That's what at least I like to think. But we all
mean, the thing is, there's always the saying like, don't hate the player, hate the game, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it is. You're part of a game, and either you accept the rules and what the game's like, and play the game and maybe then change the rules over time because you may have such a huge impact on it, or don't, right? And you can love it or hate it. Like, for example, I as people know, I'm not the biggest fan of social media at all, and still I'm on there. That is not me being a hypocrite. That is just me acknowledging and realizing that it's part of the game as well.
Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of the Revive Stronger member site. Inside you'll find a thriving forum, a growing exercise library, presentations, research reviews, and courses. If you want to get involved, sign up via the description.
Where else are we going to go with this? So let's get an update on you, Pascal.
There's actually not that much to talk about.
You're feeling really good though. So what's changed?
I'm feeling very, very good.
We got an update in terms of what you've done with your nutrition. Steps, have they changed?
Not really. I'm keeping just the habits up. I mean, yeah, I'm not as much on it anymore in terms of like getting in at least like 3 to 4 walks per day. I'm still just out of typical habits. I'm getting in like 3 walks throughout the day. The typical walk early in the morning, then like shortly after my check-ins, and then throughout the day another one, right? But I don't feel that it's burdensome. It has never been burdensome before that. And when I was pushing, I went for another walk. So I try to actually get more steps in, intentionally speaking. In terms of nutrition, also something that I think that we've talked about already, not entirely certain, that I had to just accept that my maintenance level is probably much, much lower than I would love it to be. But I did the calculations. I really took out my emotions and tried to stay as rational as I can be when looking at the data over the past couple of weeks that I've collected when coming up with my maintenance intake. And it seemed very, very low on paper, but I did the calculations. And once again, the numbers most of the time don't really lie if you are collecting the data accordingly and appropriately. So that's what I did over the past weeks. I knew my variables were relatively the same, so I had to come to terms with that my maintenance is probably somewhere around 22 to 2300, right? And this is where I'm at right now, because as you guys may remember, I wanted to actually continue to cut up until the surgery, but then quickly came to the realization that there's no inherent benefit in doing so. It won't really make that much of a difference in terms of the centimeters or circumference measurements. Maybe it's a couple of millimeters, but it won't really change that much, right? And due to my performance slightly suffering during that time, me and my sleep being impacted, me being more irritable, I didn't really see the inherent benefit in actually staying in that caloric deficit. Even if I were to play with refeeds and all that kind of stuff, it wouldn't have been beneficial and helpful overall. So that's why I decided to go into a maintenance, stay there up until the surgery, and also a couple of weeks after the surgery then. And right now, 1.5 weeks out before the surgery, and I really do hope that I'm just staying COVID-free right now, because there are a couple of cases spiking up in the kindergarten of my kids. We took the kids out for the time being, and I just want to stay COVID-free, because otherwise we need to postpone the surgery, and I've waited for that surgery for such a long time. But yeah, lifts are also going back up again. Same as what we've discussed. The focus from the physique has just like faded a little bit. Like I'm not flexing or posing anymore.
I saw you doing a few though.
Huh?
Oh, I saw you doing a few shots over the last like few weeks. It might have been when I was in Vegas. I saw you posted some. I was like, "Oh, nice, Pascal." That might have been when you were still dieting.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the back shots I took at the gym was of course now, but it's not like so. Formerly, it was nearly each and every single day. We have like this big mirror downstairs, and whenever I'm going to bed, I'm walking past that mirror, and then you normally always check yourself out. That's something I don't do anymore. Of course, here and there, I know that I'm a little bit softer, but also there, rationally speaking, I know that I didn't really gain a lot of fat or anything alike. It's, of course, replenishment of glycogen. I'm 1.3 kilograms up from my lows, from my very much lows, and this is when I was consuming like 13 to 1500 calories. And yeah, but once again, also there, focus a little bit more away from now, focusing on the physique, more so just on feeling good, just taking off the boxes up until the surgery, and then focusing on recovery, and then going back there, and then going into a gaining phase and trying to put out some meat. That's the current situation, and also the plan moving forward. So nothing spectacular, to be honest.
Big focus for you in the off season, chest and delts, right? They're 2 areas. Yeah,
I definitely need to bring up my upper body. That's for sure. Lower body, I mean, also there's something that we've talked about in the past. I don't want to neglect that, because it is my strong suit. and you don't, of course, want to bring up your lagging body parts only, and then neglect the strong suit of yours, because you, of course, want to push that forward as well. So I'm still going to train my entire body with a slight emphasis and focus on the upper body, but in particularly chest, abs, and also then, the delts. The back has actually developed very, very nicely over the past couple of years. So I think that my back training, I kind of have a good recipe in order to bring the back up there. And I don't think that I need to modify it or tweak it more so, but especially the front side I need to focus on very much. And also then when it comes to back, just the width.
Same.
That's what I need to focus on. That's why I have now way more isolationist lat rows in there, where it's like horizontal iso rows, like normal chest supported iso lat rows, seated iso lat rows, all that kind of stuff, so that I'm really pounding that part of my back, so that everything from the front needs to be brought up. That's what I'm focusing on.
It's funny because I hadn't reflected upon it until you were talking about it. It's pretty much exactly the same for me. Like delts, chest, try and get the lats to show more from the front. I need a bit more. Like my quads are actually big. They just need to be bigger because they don't sweep nicely. Yeah. So we have very similar focus, actually.
Yeah. It is actually quite funny that both you and we got together, working together, and we are both not the most genetically blessed, but we are both also willing to put in the work and effort, and we still love the sport. So it's very, very similar, even though that structurally speaking, we are different, but also not very much made for bodybuilding.
Yeah, it's a shame. We need some like genetic elite to come in our coaching team. But
yeah,
they probably got their own coaching. Brett Freeman. Where was I going to go with this? No, that sounds really cool. And I guess, it's almost like the new year is going to spurt. That's when the improvement season can kind of start. Will you be recovered by the new year?
Yeah, absolutely. So normally it takes around 4 to 6 weeks or so. I need to walk around with some kind of a vest the entire time. It's kind of wrapped around my upper body, and I'm not allowed to put any kind of massive pressure on the upper body for like 2 to 3 weeks. After that, I can start with very, very low intensity training for the upper body. I will probably then do a little bit of lower body training after like 1 or 2 weeks. I think that 1 week of no training at all, no issues whatsoever. I think after that, I can slowly go in there, do something for the lower body. But I need to be careful, of course, because as many people may know from themselves, when they are holding on to things such as, I don't know, you're doing leg extensions or leg press, when you're holding on, you can actually tense your upper body quite intensely, right? And that is something that I want to avoid. And then maybe even something like occlusion training for the arms or so, just to get some blood flow in, just to provide some kind of anabolic signaling. But I also want to, of course, be very careful, because there's no value in rushing things, interfering with the process, and then, I don't know, getting some scar tissue because I was just too impatient with that. But I think that with the new year, yes. And then I'm going actually then on a skiing trip in March with the family. Never been in the Alpines, skiing and snowboarding, so that's going to be interesting. No. There was this one event where I can't even recall when it was. I think I was 19 or so. We went to a skiing hall, which is like just a slope, 300 meters, and it was awful because it was. Pardon?
Sorry, dry slope.
Dry? No, it was actually with proper snow there, like artificial snow, right? But thing is, it was awful because it was the year when they have opened up their location, and I think it was even the first or second weekend or so, and it was so busy that you couldn't really actually get the flight up. So what I ended up doing is actually I walked up the slope the entire time, And that was, of course, awfully exhausting. And I ended up, I think, like 6 or 7 times I was just like getting down the slope, and that was basically it. So I can't really say that I ever stood on skis or snowboard.
It's on my to-do list. I've never been skiing,
really?
So it's like something I really want to go and do sometime.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking forward to that, but of course it interferes a little bit with the gaining phase. But
of course,
it's something that I accept, because the last time when Katie and Hugo went, this was the time when Tony wasn't born, was in 2000. I think it must have been early 2019. I wasn't there because I couldn't be bothered as well. And this time, things have changed, and I want to spend a little bit more with family instead of being too fixated on myself.
That's good. Yeah, I think that's something actually I took away. I don't know how much I talked about it, but in the post-show period, like having those days of like, it was kind of mindful eating with the idea of overeating to try and regain body fat more quickly. But just having that bit of freedom, like we shared some meals, and kind of I had 2 different donuts and had half and half with like Cameron one time. And like it just opened my eyes, because normally I just be like, no, this is my meal. I've calculated the macros ahead of time. This is all I'm eating. I was like, man, Steve, why have you been so inflexible, like unnecessarily like inflexible? And it only reminds me, because like your holiday, you can easily like plan a deload there, and that works perfectly fine into things. Like you can go and enjoy yourself, and it kind of makes the heart grow fonder for then coming back and returning to things. So I feel bad, because I've probably been bad for myself, but also for like Charlotte, for like maybe friends, where I'm going to be a bit more flexible with those sort of things. And that doesn't mean I'm not still being like, I think people think you're either like dialed in or you're completely off. It's like, no, you can still be absolutely dialed in, but have these flexible like things going on. You just have to, it just takes more work and effort on your behalf.
And it's, once again, experience pays off here. I think that, same as you, I experienced that so often with my athletes. And one of the biggest reasons that the biggest problems that I'm facing with my athletes is that they are not able to put things in perspective. Like, what is actually important to worry about and what isn't. For them, same as it was for me in the past, everything is kind of valued the same, even though then in reality it isn't. And that's the same here as well. Like, don't worry about that one meal at Thanksgiving, for example. What it is that you can do is like some certain things, and one of the things that I've talked about in the past is that one rule with the one plate, one dessert, and one drink. If you go by that, totally fine. Chances are you won't really exceed the calories for the day big time. If you are then also making some mindful decisions, of course. And then you can fall back to things such as precision nutrition, actually promoted in the past, that with the one plate that you're having, don't just fill it up with like cake. Right? That is not a proper plate. We're talking then about like making a mindful decision of like maybe 1/3 of a protein source, 1/3 of a starch carbohydrate, and 1/3 of vegetables. And if you do that, right, chances are you really won't exceed or do a lot of damage. And maybe you will even undereat. And that is totally fine. One day will not make that much of a difference. But I think that everyone has to go through these things themselves to realize that it really isn't a big deal.
The great time you see it is if, like I just talked them through it. I'm like, so say you're in a deficit every day of the week, and then this day you go even into like 1,000 calorie surplus. On average, you're still in a deficit for the week. You've still lost fat. That one day isn't going to undo the whole week. You have to actually go, like when people talk about the weekends throwing them off, that's going crazy. Like that's going like 5,000 plus calories or something for 2 days. Like one day, like you said, one meal, especially if you kind of are mindful at that meal and you like leave, you swap it for a couple of meals, it's not going to break the week at all, and you're going to feel more relaxed. And you have no deadlines. That's something that I often bring up to people. Is like, you're not in freaking contest prep. You're not a bodybuilder. Yeah. If we're back delayed by 1 week, it's 1 week. You just enjoyed yourself. Like,
it's just totally having the skill, though, to kind of fine tune things and switch the dial instead of just like, it's either on or off. You can actually turn it slightly to one side or the other. And I have the feeling that that skill is not available for most when they are starting out, and they have to learn that it's not just like whoosh and then it's up at 10 and whoosh and it's shut off again. No, you can actually put it to 5 or so, and you still, I think that people forget that self-discipline and a little bit of self-control is still very much appreciated and needed in those situations. And I have the feeling that people are then, it's more like an either-or situation. And that is something where, practice also then cures kind of the anxiety as well.
And actually you feel better when you don't go wild, when you don't switch off, because a lot of people will do that and the next day they feel guilty.
Yeah.
And so it's okay to kind of manage things a little bit, be mindful, have a little bit, like you said, have the rule 1. You don't have to eat every dessert, or if you do, sample every little one. You're probably, while you might feel a little restricted in that moment, and you might like to think short term, you'd like to overindulge. If you did do that, the next day you wake up, you feel like garbage and you feel really guilty about everything. Long term, you're not going to feel the best. Whereas if you just are moderate and you dial it, like you said, the next day you'll feel like, I'm really satisfied with my approach there. I enjoyed it, but I didn't go overboard. And now I can just get back to plan.
Yeah. And I think that this it directly translates into other aspects of life as well. So let's just say you have a budget. And we can see this even with millionaires. When they are making, or they are spontaneously winning $1 million, chances are that you will be broke in like 5 years from now. Something like this.
Lottery winners.
Yeah,
crazy
exactly.
Statistic.
Exactly. Crazy statistics. It's like, I think like 90% of millionaires overnight, they lost it all after like 5 years or so, and 60% after 1 year or something like that. And it's the same there as well. Self-control is still something that you have to practice and also apply in those situations. And I think that you're an adult, you can make those decisions. That's why I'm sometimes very much surprised, but it could also be a fallacy of mine that I fall into because I've been doing this since such a long time that it has become the norm for me. I don't even have to think about it. Whereas if I were to look back a couple of years, I was probably in the same situation such as other people. It's the same when it comes to learning a new skill. At first, things are very, very challenging, very hard, requires a lot of attention, and there are even things that you don't even think about. And now it's just like, when people are asking me, how do you come to the conclusion of like my maintenance carries? To be honest, I'm not thinking about this anymore. This is kind of second nature already because you've seen it so often.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
Yeah, it's like you said, experience helps with all of this. And I think also people think that there's perfect with a lot of what they're doing, and that you can never be perfect. You can never be 100% sure. You just have to be good enough and feel good about your decisions. I was trying to think of a way we could get away from the talking about, like, we're basically talking about like Christmas eating, which I didn't intend us to talk about, like holiday eating.
Yeah, but I think it's still valuable though, because it also applies to typical dieting patterns as well, and also social events and all that kind of stuff. And this is one of the biggest reasons why people's diets are failing, and also they are not seeing the progress. And this is probably, when I really think about it, one of the most challenging things for the vast majority of my athletes.
I do have athletes who have, it normally is younger, less experienced ones who have come into macro tracking, who then get anxious about eating out. And so I have to like kind of, the great thing is we've both been through that process where we felt anxious about eating out, where we have been overly restrictive, and you only have to be like a number of steps ahead of your clients to be able to help them through these things. And that's why it's great, because I see a lot of myself in those individuals. And it's just about kind of making sure they enjoy it. That's the main thing. But that's something I was going to say actually was, I think I said it to you in a message where like you talk about trying to do everything in that off season. Like, I don't know, you probably look into my MyFitnessPal. You can check how many days did I go over like 60 grams of fat. Probably not many days. Probably an absurd number of days I managed to keep my fats that low whilst consuming like 600 grams of carbs. Whereas now I'm like, it's just not worth that. Like I can go up to 80 grams, 60 to 80 grams. Like I can just have a bit more flexibility and freedom. I'm not getting that much more from restricting myself to 60 grams. Like I must be at 60 grams because otherwise I'm not optimal. I'm not getting the huge amount of insulin that carbohydrates are giving me. I'm like, it's just not worth the stress. Like if I want to go and enjoy a meal out, I'm fucking off carbs and fat. I'm going to just go and enjoy that meal out because the relaxation, the longevity that's going to provide me in terms of just enjoying things more, it's going to be worth it versus like really. So I talk about it with like, when you can, be all in. When you don't, when you can't, just do your best at that period of time. And don't over kind of stress about it. But yeah, that's something I just thought I'd say in terms of my off season is I am going to allow more freedom with fats and not be as restrictive with myself because it's just not worth the trade-off.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I'm not going to go 150 grams and like over, I'm probably rarely going to go over 100, but certainly going to eat some more high quality fats.
I think
and enjoy those.
The key is once again, and I know it sounds boring and I know we bring it up all the time, but it's a moderate approach to things. Also here, kind of a middle ground approach. Like you don't have to be overly restrictive or always have like massive self-discipline, but letting loose or losing control completely is also not the way to go. And I think that, to be honest, and I know that this may sound controversial, but if you are an adult, you can be that self-disciplined, and you don't have to lose complete control. Even if you have the feeling that there's peer pressure going on, or other people are, I don't know, enjoying themselves, right? Enjoying in their sense or what their understanding of enjoying is. You don't have to go there because you are in your own skin 24/7. And you need to do yourself a favor first. And it's the typical saying of like, in Germany, we have the saying of like, if someone is jumping down a cliff, are you doing that as well?
Yeah.
All right. And
so we have very similar saying. I can't actually think what it is off the top of my head.
Yeah, and it really applies here. It really applies. I mean, just because other people are doing something doesn't mean that you have to, especially because all the other goals, we are different individuals and we have different goals and different needs and wants. And we don't always have to just like go by the horde. And I know this is hard because we are human beings after all. And we find pleasure and joy in kind of peer appreciation as well.
Something I noticed, I wonder if you're similar to me, Pascal, during this, I don't know why when I think about it, it's incredibly obvious to me. But when we were in Vegas, we went out for Jess's birthday. And when there's more than about 5 or 6 people, I really go into my shell, especially when I'm in a noisy, busy environment. So in a bar or something like that, I find it really challenging to communicate and to socialize with people. And I just go into my shell and I just want to leave. I'll be very honest. It's not something I enjoy. I don't enjoy the idea of, having people looking at me on the dance floor and like I find it really hard to let loose, and I just go into my shell. Whereas if I'm in like we were in someone's hotel room and there was just like 6 of us and we're just chatting, I love that. Like that is my environment where I just I do really well. We went to a cabin. We went to the Grand Canyon. We stayed in a cabin and we just like sat around a fire and we were just chatting. I was just like, oh yeah, like this is when I really become quite extroverted almost, where I really want to talk. But yeah, I don't know if it's completely off. Like it just reminded me of it because you were talking about like doing things you enjoy. And I've realized for myself, if I put myself, like sometimes Charlotte will want to go out and she will love that sort of environment in the bar, lots of people, she'll come out of her shell, she can do all that. But it just isn't me. Like it's just not my idea of fun. You could remove half the people, put you into a quieter room, and like have a fire there and some like snacks or something, and then I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm so much more like you now, but I wasn't always that type of person. I very much enjoy it now way more when it's more relaxed, and also just like maybe just you and I, for example, or a very, very small group. Whereas in the past, when I moved to Berlin, I was working in the music industry as well. I was constantly on the road even. There were times where I was then out with a band for like 2 weeks and wasn't at home at all. And once I was at home, on the evening, I felt or was falling into a slight depression, because all of a sudden you've been by yourself. It wasn't the constant action and all that kind of stuff. And I loved it during that time. Now, if I think about it, it already makes me cringe. I couldn't even imagine doing that anymore. And the funny thing is that, of course, you may miss out on great opportunities due to that. And I'm just bringing up an example. Katie's friends, she has a group of girls from Magdeburg she's very, very close with. And it's amazing to see how good of friends they are, because I think that especially when you are an adult, you only very much have like a couple of friends, and they are like a bunch of friends of like 8 girls, and even the men, they know each other. So it's a massive group, right, who are all kind of friends with another. So they are planning, because everyone is kind of on the same level. They have kids, decent job, all that kind of stuff. So no one is an outsider or kind of a weirdo. And they are planning I think for this year, New Year's Eve, to book a cabin. All of them. And it's going to be like 18 or 19 people or something like that. Independent of the kids. And Katie asked me like, are you coming? And she knew what my answer is going to be. This is not for me. And I was even contemplating and going, just because I know that it would possibly mean a lot to Katie, but she knows me well enough that she knows that this isn't for me. Why isn't that something for me? Could I miss out on something? Yes, I could. But I also know from years of living in Berlin and living that FOMO lifestyle of like needing to go out each and every single night. There was a time when I was living in Berlin where I was going out 5 days out of the week partying. Why? Sometimes there wasn't even a plan. It was just because I had the feeling that I'm missing out on something. There's probably something, right? And I would even say like 9 times out of 10, it was a shitty and a boring night that was just a repetition of what has been going on in the past. It was nothing fancy, nothing special, right? And that is probably also then the case here. Is there a possibility that I'm missing out on things? Yes. The thing is, though, that I've become, and I acknowledge that myself, I have become quite a weirdo, and I've always been that kind of way, but probably never lived it really out. And now I'm confident enough, I'm old enough to say like, yes, this is me. And I don't even care about other people anymore to that extent when they are not living in my small kind of bubble. I like lifting. I like animes, and I like finances and crypto. That's basically me. And these 3 things are so niche that nearly no one really likes those things. So if anyone else has anything to talk about, like football or so, I'm just like, I don't give a fuck. That's me. And that's just me being honest. And that's why I like to just be on my own. Long story short, but I think that this may also apply to you because like bodybuilding, right? And not many people are into stuff like that.
I guess actually, and that's why that Vegas weekend and week was so good, because everyone was fucking just into it.
Yeah.
Obviously, but there's some people that like that nightlife as well. Like Jess, that's her thing. She loves being social. She loves doing that sort of thing. But yeah, it's funny that cabin type of thing. For me, it depends how many people there are. Once there's over like, much more than like 10, I'm like, it's just too many people. Maybe if we split off into like 2 different groups, but then, yeah, like you said, part of me likes the idea of just letting someone, like if that was for Charlotte, just let her go enjoy herself, do that thing, and I'll just be at home and I don't know, I'll have a mate over and we're just like watch a film, get a takeaway, and I'll be in bed where they're still partying. I'll wake up the next day, get a lift in, feel amazing, and I'll get to hear about that night. And I'm satisfied hearing about it and not having to kind of, I know it sounds bad, but almost endure it in some ways, because it's just not like what I want to do. Even down to like drinking when we're in Vegas, and just multiple times. Like I could have a cocktail, sure, or I could have like, I just think, I could have a chocolate milkshake. Like I think I'll enjoy the chocolate milkshake more. No, it doesn't have the alcohol that I just don't care about anymore. It's just, Charlotte calls me like an old man. That's what I feel like I'm more of. Also a weirdo.
But that's the thing, right? One of my athletes, her husband, just asked recently, like, do you still have to track all of the macros? And I was saying, you don't have to, but what is wrong with that? Like, honestly, what is wrong with tracking the macros? Socially speaking, and in our environment, of course, it seems weird because that is not typical behavior. Not everyone is really aware of what they are putting into their mouth. Neither are they even tracking macros. So for the outsider who's not doing that, that seems like a very obsessive thing to be doing. And also seems like from the outside as if it requires a lot of attention and a lot of effort. However, if you've been doing that since such a long time, to me and to you as well, and I think, and I know that you will be able to confirm that, it really doesn't take a lot to do this. This is kind of second nature already by this point in time. It's just something that I do. And even if I wouldn't be tracking like on my FitnessPal, I would still do that in my head, not in an obsessive manner, not in a, shit, I'm losing control now, I need to have control, so what are these macros? It's just something that you're naturally doing because you've been doing this since such a long time. And I think that only because socially speaking, something isn't the norm or accepted, doesn't mean that something is wrong with you or that you should be dropping it. And I think that sometimes people have that feeling that they should get away from tracking because not everyone is doing that, and that's why it's wrong. But think about it. There are so many things being a norm in our society that if you really think about it, pragmatically speaking, it's fucked up. So for example, alcohol consumption. Like how normal alcohol consumption is, how accepted it is freaking crazy if you really think about it. Just pragmatically speaking, think about what alcohol does to you and your body and to your overall system, and also societally speaking as well. How many people are dying from alcohol? How many people are dying from alcohol being the cause for an incident or so? What alcohol does to your system. And yet, it is so accepted that if you aren't drinking, that is something weird with you. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many other things that are the exact same way. For example, we are working in the fitness industry. If you want on start to take care of yourself and your body, what a freaking weirdo you are, right? You're going to train like 5 days out of the week? Fuck. In the morning time? You're getting up at 6 in the morning just to train? What is wrong with you? Holy shit, you're doing something good for yourself. In that you're tracking the macros, you're building some awareness of the food that you're putting into your system. Actually, it is freaking insane to think that people are just putting something in their mouth that they don't even know what it is that they are eating and what it may cause to the system. And if you're then making that decision to do something good for yourself, don't feel like a weirdo just because other people aren't doing that.
I think that's, like, I'm just nodding the whole way because I think it's societal norms doesn't mean it's good or better or anything like that. It's like a perfect example is talking about like Christmas Day. You have someone who like it's the norm to overindulge, to have all the alcohol, to eat way too much food, and to gain loads of weight. If you just look at what that is, like overindulging, gaining weight, putting on excess fat, not healthy. Kind of moderating yourself, taking control, being mindful, not gaining excessive amounts of fat. That's healthy, and that maybe should be more the norm, but it's not. And it's the same with the alcohol and all those things. And I do have a way of rounding this podcast off, actually.
Go ahead.
Because this is reminding me of the norm, because I recently did some polls on my Instagram, and I don't know if you answered them or not, but I didn't check everyone's answer. But one of them was showering, and I want to know what people's responses in the comments, whether or not you face the shower head, so it's coming like at you at this angle, into your face, or if you face away from the shower head the majority of the time, because I respect there might be moments you kind of twist and turn or what have you. What is your approach to the shower?
Facing away.
Good, because I'm the same. And it blows my mind to think people will just let it hit them like in the face.
Yeah, but I actually have to say that I'm more conscious about me showering ever since I had my surgery for my eyes. Because there was a time where I wasn't allowed to get some water into my eyes. Ever since then, I'm actually showering with some goggles on as well, because I have like the shampoo, when it's getting into your eyes, the eyes are burning, and I don't really think it's a good thing then. That's why I'm just protecting my eyes, and then I'm just wearing some goggles.
See you every time you shower.
Yeah, it looks hilarious, to be honest. But yeah.
Next one.
Brushing teeth?
Oh, what was it? No, this one was when you go... Oh, I think this one's a bit of a weird one. It's like when you're on the toilet, number 2, do you stand or sit when you're wiping? Do you just shove your hand?
Do you stand or sit while
do you
you're
like
shitting?
just lift a bit of your hip and then put your hand down, or are you standing off the toilet?
I've never heard anyone. Okay, it's kind of a taboo topic anyway. I've never asked anyone how they are wiping their ass, but I always thought that everyone is doing it like this, that they are just like lifting their hip to one.
There you go.
Yeah, to one side, and then. I've never. But once again, this is one of those topics where I never really thought of that there's a different way.
It's the same with the shower.
Yeah.
The shower was 50-50
on
my story. This was like 70% just sit on the toilet and do it.
Oh, really?
30% of people stand up.
Really?
And I've just asked, in terms of brushing teeth.
I will ask Katie like later how she's doing it.
I just asked, when do people brush their teeth? Do they brush it first thing, like on waking, or do they eat breakfast or their first meal and then brush their teeth?
Also there, I am unfortunately not genetically blessed when it comes to teeth health. Unfortunately, I have to do a lot of stuff for my teeth to be healthy. So I'm brushing my teeth. I'm actually taking some, what is it called, like between the teeth?
Toothpick type of, Flossing, exactly.
Have to do that regularly because my teeth are so close together. And then also once per week, I'm actually using a special kind of...
is it a water toothpick?
No. It's more like a gel that you're putting then on top of your teeth. And then I'm also, of course, rinsing my my mouth with mouth water. Yeah. So... I need to do a lot because there was a time where my teeth were actually like getting destroyed because I didn't do these things. I was just like the typical dude, right? Brushing the teeth, and that's everything. So I'm not genetically blessed, and that's why I was also looking into like teeth hygiene, and that is then when is it most appropriate to brush your teeth, and that is not directly in front of something to eat. And also not immediately after. So the best thing would be that you're waiting for like a minimum of 45 minutes before you're then brushing your teeth, because I have no idea what it's called, but otherwise you are brushing away the Yeah, exactly. You're brushing that away, and then you are actually revealing your teeth for then being more susceptible of breaking down. So I am the latter. I'm brushing my teeth like an hour to 2 hours after I've eaten something.
So now we know, at least if you're going to brush them before or after, we want 30 minutes to 45 minutes, which is good for me because I brush them immediately on waking, and I definitely don't eat within the first 45 minutes of being up because I take Ada out and stuff like that.
And it's so crazy because one of my bandmates, Leonard, he was playing the piano. I'm still cringing whenever I saw how he's actually kind of treating his teeth. But this is just me because I was the unfortunate one, and he could do whatever the fuck he wanted. It was like he was actually then brushing his teeth, then eating breakfast alongside with a coffee, and then afterwards he was brushing his teeth again because of the smell of the coffee. And that is the worst thing that you can do because of the acid of the coffee as well. And I was just like, oh, and he had perfect teeth. He had perfect teeth, nothing. And I was just like, this is so unfair.
This is one final random side topic. So first of all, I want to know in the comments what other people do. So do you brush your teeth before or after breakfast? Do you stand or sit when you're wiping your ass on the loo? Do you face away or face the shower when you're showering?
This is going to be such an interesting comment section.
And then I just spent way too much money on this gum. Have you ever had it?
No.
They used to sell.
There's only one brand that I'm using.
Airways.
Yeah, the blue ones, the original ones.
So this is the best gum I've ever had.
For real?
Flavor and longevity.
For real?
Yeah. So this is 5 gum. They used to sell it in the UK, but they didn't for some reason. They stopped. But they sold it in the US, and I liked it so much I purchased some on Amazon, and I spent like each of these cost like close to £3.
And longevity as well.
Yeah, they're good.
This is exactly why I'm only going with Airwaves, the original ones, because they are the ones where the longevity is crazy. You can eat or chew on them for like 45 minutes or an hour, and they are still all right. Whereas then you have other brands and also other flavors from Airwaves. Airwaves are the ones who last the longest. But then other brands, it's just like you put them into your mouth and like after 5 times, it's already kind of rotten, basically.
Yeah. You almost might as well just eat a sweet. That's how quickly it goes. But these guys, 5, I was just like, I've got 10 packs here. I'm like, yes, right. I just need this back in my life.
This is what I have with Snacker Jacks. That Katie and I already ordered some Snacker Jacks from the Netherlands at times because there's nothing alike here in Germany. And I don't get it. I mean, flavored rice cakes is one of the best things that you can have, honestly. And that there's none of the companies coming to that enlightenment here of producing something like this is, I don't get it. Maybe I should be doing this.
Have you eaten any Leberkuchen yet?
No.
I haven't either. I need to. Just hasn't been on my radar.
Yeah. But this is something where we are going back to what you've originally said. Like, yes, I could be doing that, but this is, calorically speaking, with 2,200 calories only, this is a lot of calories for like very minimum satisfaction. And then you have to just like weigh the priorities.
I know we've gone way over time. Just one final thing is that's where I know I'm not recovered because I could I could just eat wholesome foods and I'd love to. I could eat loads of oats, but my fiber would go way too high and I'd feel awful. So I'm having to eat things like Snacker Jacks and like cereal. So my fiber doesn't go to like 70 grams and I'm keeping it like 50, 55. If I go much over 55, things are not good down there.
Yeah.
So that's why if people are seeing my meals ever and you're seeing some of these things, it's not like I'm including them because I think this is a wholesome part of a diet. Like the bagels and stuff are a necessity because even bagels have like 2 to 3 grams of fiber. I'm eating like a lot of this carbs. So anyway, side tangent.
We could go on for a long time because I would have... I have something to say on that one, but I'm saving that for next time because it's really not important. And I think that the people are getting tired of us talking about random stuff like brushing our teeth, wiping our asses, all that kind of stuff. So guys, thank you very much as always for tuning in, listening and all that kind of stuff. It's very much appreciated. And I know that once again, Steve and I have to do a better job in promoting these episodes and promoting, hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button. Maybe we will get there at some point. It's also there a progress. It's the improvement season for us. But yeah, thank you very much for tuning in, listening, and I guess I'll speak to you guys next week. Cheers.
See you guys. So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge. And I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.